Welcome everybody to another CIRF report. I think you're really going to like the energy shift this week. We had the growth from last week. It's going to continue to more of an expansive, fiery, powerful pushback and an easy progress according to the I-Ching. Exciting stuff. This is for the last day in March 2022 into the first week of April. Get into our April Fool's Day. And on April Fool's Day, we have a new moon in Aries. So getting into your surf stance, get ready to surf the cosmic waves. Let's get started. All right, so what we do here is we triangulate. And so I represent the Tropical Astrology with the purple circle. That's the biggest circle here. And normally it's considerably bigger than the other two. But in this week, the I-Ching hexagram 35 actually covers most of the astrology. It's really interesting because easy progress can be explained by the new moon in Aries easily. We can explain by the lack of squares. There's lots of semi-sextiles, which is sort of a new thing because we haven't been paying attention to semi-sextiles for so long because most of the energy's been squares and trines and oppositions. We don't see that. In fact, we have, again, all of the planets consolidated in a less than 120 degrees from Uranus to Pluto. And so this makes the energy vacillate up and down to the opposite emotions, potentially, opposite energy. But that's not so much the case. I mean, it's still the case this week, but we have a lot of powerful energies that are going to probably take over, and we'll talk about all those. But easy energy, including Venus and Pisces. And here's another tricky one. So we have a Mercury combust at the time of the new moon even. And so those are like cloudy thinking, can be sort of irrational thinking because mind is combust. Mercury is in combust. It's getting close to the sun. So it's like the deer in the headlight. Look, hard to ascertain rational thinking. Well, a lot of times rational thinking actually slows us down. And so we don't have that problem this week. Rational thinking isn't going to stop us a whole lot. Now, confused thinking might, but Mercury combust is actually supportive of this easy progress, if you think about it. Now, it's not necessarily a good thing all the time. It can make it much more impulsive, much more irrational, but you get the gist. It doesn't, we're not implying with these energies, we're not saying that it's good or bad. It's how that energy is used. Remember that. So overall, we have the I-Ching saying easy progress. We have tropical astrology that really supports that with a new moon in Aries. But the Dreambot is a little bit off of that center. The very center of the astrology is the new moon in Aries. That's the dominant energy. The Dreambot not really covering new moon in Aries. It's more of corruption revealed. It really sounds a lot more Aquarian in nature. And the only thing happening in Aquarius, the only thing is actually a big thing for this week is Saturn and Mars going in a perfect conjunction. And that's going to be, that can be a little bit conflicted. It can be a little bit rough, but it is very Aquarian because it's in Aquarius. And so corruption revealed, disclosure, secrets revealed, all that kind of stuff. And there is actual word storm in there and at the very top. So there could be a very big revealing this week, but we're not predicting future events with this, but it is interesting, this Dreambot thing. And with that, let's go ahead and get started. All right. And stop talking, get started. Make sure before we get too far into this that you're subscribed either on YouTube or Rumble, ideally both. We have a growing number of people over on Rumble. Big shout out to you guys. In fact, we had more people with comments with more Rumbles than YouTube. So shout out to all you people over on Rumble. Thank you, and thank you for commenting. Thank you for being here. And shout out to all of you YouTubers. Terry and Maria having a little conversation about how accurate last week's CIRF report was. I'm glad to hear. I love hearing those types of comments. But I don't need those. I want to have feedback about accuracy. So if you have some suggestions about how to make these things better, then please bring those forth. So appreciative of your comments, one way or the other. Over on Rumble, Terry says PIR is talking about the expected Black Swan event. So is Bix Weirs, but from a different angle. Hope everyone is prepared. Well, I think this week probably supports it. I'm wondering if this Dreambot, Terry, you tell me if the Dreambot is spot on with this. I don't know. And not for me to say, has a similar type of comment about last week's CIRF report being the 17 references. I think you're going to see a lot more this week. I can't wait to see both of your comments as far as anything for this coming Black Swan event or our Dreambot run and how those all are correlated. Hey, Susan. Thanks for coming back, Chris. I'm glad you turned back in my feed. I'm glad I ended up in your feed, Susan. I found my twin flame, twin soul, and looked at so many tarot readers because we are in a divinely ordained period of separation. I'm Aquarius rising and moon, Aries sun. My twin is also Aries sun, both Mercury and Pisces, and very intense. Again, glad to see and hear you. A fool on the hill. I love that. Well, thanks for getting back here, Susan. Now, I don't have a winner for this week, but how about just Rumble side for winning the comments of the week, because there were more rumbles over there than there were up arrows over on YouTube. Surprised the heck out of me. But if you don't mind right now, take a pause, go back to this week's video, or just go down below and check out the comments and maybe make a comment yourself, but also rate the other comments, a little up arrow here or a little down arrow, whatever you think is appropriate. That really helps. All right, let's get into the not astrology yet, but the Dreambot. And you can see at the top word is shark. Not a really big surge score, so not all that, I don't know, big emphasis, but if you think about it, shark is a very attack oriented. So it could be seen as sort of an Aries energy, but it's also a fish. So there's Pisces in there too. Aries and Pisces. That's interesting. And you're going to see that is probably the best combination of this entire week. So I think very appropriate to see shark up there. We have a linguistic set that says past storm caught pile. And I'm thinking pile of doo-doo, but it's caught and the storm is catching and it's past. So maybe the collective unconscious sees in the next, I don't know, the time period for these Dreambots, if they manifest, is about a couple weeks to 6 weeks, 2 to 6 weeks ish. So maybe in 2 to 6 weeks, this storm will have passed. Oh my gosh. Hopefully, can only hope. I didn't just predict that. I'm curious as all of you are. But look at all of these red arrows. All of them. There's a lot of them. Even bedwetting is there for a lot of revealing corruption. And people are going to be sorry. And there's a showcasing and details and waking, surface, plan, things surface. Isn't that an interesting way to look at the word surface? So there's a lot of words that support this storm kind of a thing. And so things are going to be really interesting. I'll put it that way. All right. Let's look at the astrology. I didn't even put March in here. Let's get on and move on to April. Okay. We have a glorious conjunction happening on the 12th. Let me darken this for you so you can see it. So this is just an overview of April. We're going to talk about the day-to-day goings on in the stars inside of these vertical lines later, day by day. But for now, I'm just giving you an overview of April. On the 12th of April, you're going to have this Jupiter and Neptune in a perfect conjunction. And I actually went to my software and validated that, yes, in the past, the last time Jupiter and Neptune were conjoined together in Pisces, there was a big treaty being signed. And I'm going to talk about that next week. I already have the screenshots for that, but peace is more than likely going to break out. So if there is a World War III, which a lot of people are concerned about or predicting, we're already in a very significant alignment that suggests that it's not going to be long lasting. And I hope I'm right. And then we have, before that, we have a very potentially conflicted, which is a Mars and Saturn together. Now, Saturn wants to keep things the same. It can be sort of hardship. And when you combine hardship with the battle, the impulsive one, the warrior of Mars, it can feel a little bit conflicted or confined, but we're in the freedom-oriented, independent-oriented Aquarius is this conjunction. So even though this is red, sort of conflicted, it's in that Aquarian lens. And so this could be more of a pushback. And this could be a very big igniting of everything Aquarian, disclosure included. Venus is going to go exalted into Pisces towards the end of our CIRF week, and we'll go over that. We have Mercury eventually going into Taurus. We have the Sun going into Taurus. And we have, this is just basically Mercury combust. And they're not in the same elevation, so I'm not going to go Kazemi because they're not in the exact piece of sky. So that just means that there's not this period, in my opinion, there's not this period of magnificent thinking inside of 17 minutes of each other because they're not in the same elevation. Then we have the Sun and Pluto going into a square. And that's really the only square that you're going to see after Mercury and Pluto. Yep, Mercury and Pluto finish their square. So there's going to be a couple squares more, and it's going to be in Pluto. On Pluto is the central theme there. So get ready for a little bit more pressure, but not this week. This week is not a conflicted energy other than the Saturn and Mars. So let's get started day by day. Thursday, the 31st, last day of March. We have a stellium in Aries. That includes Chiron, Sun, Mercury, and the Moon. Moon's about ready to make its new moon. It's going to be in Aries, of course. And then we have the magnificent, I think I used that word last time, but Jupiter and Neptune coming together. They're within about 2.5 degrees. Getting closer, and this is I think 31 years ish every time that these things conjoin. So but the last time Pisces happened, that was way back 1700s, so a long time ago. And you don't have to wait for this perfect conjunction. As we get closer and closer, this energy, which is it's the two rulers of Pisces, and so very Pisces oriented. It's like the lock and key that opens up this big gate of the best of Pisces, and so we're looking at a very optimistic, very positive, very very connected, very spiritual. So everything that Jupiter offers, the positivity, the wisdom, everything that Neptune offers, which is sort of an escape. An escape doesn't have to be a negative thing. A fantasy, a dream of everything Pisces. And so it's the best. It's the best of humanity. It's the final zodiac sign of the 12. So it's the final stage, if you want to look at that. So it's a much higher transcendent feeling, and certainly out of the war mindset. And this is a good moderation of the other sort of conflicted energy of Mars and Saturn. Those two on Thursday are about 2 degrees away. And of course, Mars is whipping around here pretty fast. So we'll get into this conjunction pretty quickly here. We do have a square showing, and that's very weak. That's Mars and Uranus, and they're like 7 degrees off. So this is waning, and it leaves this new moon energy to be more dominant. It leaves the very positive Jupiter and Neptune more dominant, and of course the Mars and Saturn energy. Also, you have these growth things, either semi-sextiles, which represent growth of the stelliums. We have 2 stelliums. And look, one final call out for all these planets from Pluto to Uranus are all consolidated within 120 degrees. And even less than that, more like 100 and doing some quick math, like 110 degrees. And so this energy, when it's consolidated like that, if you imagine having a weight on one side of the wheel, or like if the merry-go-round, if you're like the only one on there as a kid, I like the wheel, but a weight on a wheel is going to make it sort of turn stronger at some points of it. So I don't know, in terms of mood and everything, I think this is going to be higher ups and higher downs ish as we expand outward in the Aries energy. All right, Friday the 1st, happy April Fool's Day. Now this is going to be tricky because a Mercury combust is tricky in and of itself, because you don't have that rational backup to be aware of things. You have your rational thinking, logic sort of confused. That's within 2 degrees of the sun at the time of the new moon. New moon is at 11 degrees, 31 minutes of Aries. And so everything I just talked about is strengthened. So even the Jupiter and Neptune is strengthened. Mercury and Saturn are strengthened, except for this square. It's almost gone by now. That's 19. So that's just about out, about 7 degrees still. But all these semi-sextiles is this snapshot for this month of Aries. The Aries new moon represents what is going to be new or the theme for this particular month until the next new moon. And this one is the Aries energy. Aries is expansive, a little bit more oriented towards self and my self-interests. Can be fiery, can be impulsive, even more impulsive when you have your rational mind occluded or confused, or just can't access it quite as well. So makes things even more emotional, more impulsive, and that can be problematic, of course, but it is what it is. Expansive, fiery, and then the pushback. Did I forget to mention? Going back to the main energy for this week is the expansive, fiery. That's the new moon in Aries. But the pushback comes with Mars and Saturn together, and they're going to be going perfect conjunct later this week, but in Aquarius. And the pushback is for disclosure, for Aquarian things. Corruption revealed, very Aquarian thing. All right, so now on Saturday the 2nd of April, we have a perfect conjunction, but even as its perfect conjunction, Sun and Mercury are moving together, but Mercury is moving faster, goes past the sun, but they're at different elevations. And so we're not going to get a igniting perfect thought for a while where they go perfect over each other. So we're going to just get a maximum combust, and meaning that the Mercury, the thoughts, the logic is really going to suffer at a maximum right here on Saturday. This is where your thoughts, even your ability to drive yourself to different places, to be able to plan, to negotiate, are all at its worst. So Saturday is just a day to, perhaps get things done, but not anything really mentally exhausting or mentally intense. I wouldn't do that if I were you. Then we have, about 1.5 degrees now for this. But this growth here underneath it all is the steady humanitarian output as it supports this Mars and Saturn energy. Sunday the 5th, look at this, no squares. The Mars and Uranus are done in terms of its square, and all that's left are conjunctions and semi-sextiles. It's easy. And that doesn't necessarily mean only good things happen. Things are easy, but it is expansive and it's growth. It's a very spring-oriented day. Not just good, healthy plants are springing in the spring and trees, but also weeds. Maybe even poisonous weeds are also growing, right? So it's not just, you can't just grow good. There's bad that's growing too. I'm not suggesting that weeds are all bad. I mean, dandelion is considered one of the most powerful herbs of all time, but also considered the most evil of all the weeds for people who want to manicure their lawns and spray poison at the weeds. But dandelions can do a lot of great health, a lot of great healthy things for the body. And it's more of an herb. So before you judge all of this energy, make sure you realize that everything is easily progressing on this, especially on this day. This is Sunday the 3rd, April 3rd. And then Monday, the moon is going to be having all sorts of aspects, as you can imagine, because all these planets are right together. So you got multiple squares, a trine, some sextiles, and some semi-sextiles. So you got a little bit of everything on the emotions. Emotions, lots of variety of emotion. And this is going to be exacerbated by having all these planets together within that same spectrum of the sky. And look at this. We're getting real close to Mars and Saturn together. And so getting closer to pushback on documents revealed, on corruption revealed, on disclosure, all these kinds of Aquarian things. Fighting pushback for freedom, for collective good. Freedom for collective good. That sounds like an oxymoron. And based on today, we have to be on one side or the other. Well, Aquarian doesn't want to. Aquarian wants collective good, but I'm not going to self-sacrifice for it. And we also have this energy, and this is the self-sacrificing. It's the Pisces and the Jupiter and Neptune coming together. And they're about 1.5 degrees, so they're getting closer too. Tuesday the 5th, we have, this is actually the time, well, not exactly. So it's around noon Central Time, Daylight Savings Time on April 5th. Venus is going to go into Pisces. And Venus in Pisces is very exalted, meaning that never stronger. Venus is never stronger than this exaltation. And so beauty, peace, harmony, negotiative skills. And it's equally matched over here. So Mercury is getting further and further away from the sun. So this 3 degrees away now. And so I'm starting to get my negotiative abilities with my logical brain back. And so negotiation and peace are back. And then we got negotiation and peace with potential peace breaking out with Jupiter and Neptune colliding. Peace and harmony are very, very, very supported. Tuesday the 5th, the only thing conflicted potentially is Mars and Saturn. But like I said, the status quo is turning more Aquarian. Mars is fighting for things Aquarian in this case. So only if you're on the right side of it, only positive things happening. Tuesday the 5th for freedom and other Aquarian things. Wednesday the 6th, there's a pressure to think about power and control because that's going to be a theme in our solution. Mercury and Pluto begin a square, and I talked about this earlier. This is going to be more prominent for next week. So you've got a conflicted square. At the same time, you're going to have a perfect conjunction of Jupiter and Neptune next week. I think the 12th, I believe. So we'll talk about that in the next CIRF report. But so we have peace on the one hand. You have Jupiter, Venus in Pisces with more peace emphasis on the one hand, but then you've got this Mercury square Pluto. This is a pressure to think about power and control because that's what Pluto represents, is power and control. And then, thinking about it, which is Mercury, it's the pressure to think about power and control. All right, let's take the highlight off and let's get into the overlaps of the influence. The last of the influence says easy progress. I chose some blue ink for the I-Ching. I don't know if that matters. Not sure of the significance of that, but seemed to be right. And the situation is one of easy, natural progress. What has been weak is ascending, and by gaining a prominent position will become more powerful. That is the Aries energy. One image here is the light of the rising sun, which at first appears dim through the mist, but this same light will radiate with powerful clarity once the sun has reached its high position in the sky. Goodness in human nature is like the dim but beautiful early morning light. That's felt to me more like Jupiter conjunct Neptune, and that's only getting stronger as we get into the next week. So let's get into the lines. Line 2 says a lack of progress can be caused simply by a lack of the right contacts. Through this disheartening, progress will cease entirely if you push too hard with people who have not had a chance to develop trust in you. Line 3 says pushing ahead brings good fortune. With the support of those above and below, progress is unstoppable. Thinking Aries new moon. And line 5 says when one is a position of service to others who wield more power, a gentle and benevolent attitude will further the interest of the whole. That sounds like the shark. If you think about the metaphor of the shark, where you're combining the Aries side of things, the warrior, the attacker, but also the fish. The fish is Pisces. So the shark, remember, was in the Dreambot at the top. And this sort of combines the Pisces and the Aries energy, line 5, and is a nice, perfect segue to the solution, which is liaison. Now in liaison, we have all yang lines except for the bottom line. So the bottom support is yin. This whole thing crumbles without that yin foundation. A coming together of disparate forces, meaning completely different forces, may not be what it seems. An apparently harmless but potentially dangerous element has attracted attention and is pulling on a stronger one. So what we have here is the power differentials. Be wary of temptations that arise because of the power of your position, or conversely, your connection to someone in an important position. Combat temptations to take unfair advantage of power differentials. As soon as you become aware of dangerous liaison, promptly speak up or step away. When honorable and balanced, there are indeed times when a rendezvous of the yielding and the strong turns out to be a great opportunity for a positive and constructive relationship. So it overall liaison is talking about being aware of the power differentials, watching very closely how you handle that energy, and making sure it's right for you, not to take any unfair advantage. It's a very Pisces thing to do. But it doesn't mean completely self-sacrificing. It means neither one of you have an unfair. So it's a combination of Aries and Pisces. That was the perfect segue, with the power being the central theme. And then I take our conversion chart, where we're basically converting tropical astrology into the rave and sidereal, because these become our solution, triangulation. When I put the new moon in, I get at 11 degrees Aries, I get 21 hexagram or gate in the rave, and I get Pisces again. Pisces has been our sidereal solution for quite a few weeks now. And remember, that means biting through. The justified and necessary use of power in overcoming deliberate and persistent interference. This combines our Saturn and Mars energy, biting through. This is it. This is the pushback. Now, someone in confrontation, someone will lose. And so this line 3, powerlessness, is where the just are condemned to a futile confrontation with superior forces. Defeat as a survivable humiliation, often acceptable through the abuse of drugs and alcohol, unless one follows one's own material path, the breaking of the ego by superiors. Now, what this is trying to suggest is you can't win every single thing. And so this week, remember, it's about, according to the I-Ching, is about power differentials, it's about power continuum. And it's supported by the rave that says that it is, if you're facing a loss, this is for ego, by the way, if ego is facing a loss, it's better to accept that loss rather than a total withdrawal or to fight it. Neither one is acceptable in this case. So it says the total withdrawal on the downside, a lack of will for the material path in order to protect the ego. So there has to be enough ego to stand your ground, but also accept defeat if it comes. That's the most successful that you can get in this situation. But I bet you, as humanity pushes back in this Aquarian, Saturn and Mars energy in Aquarius, it's the pushback for the collective good, but in a freedom context. So individual freedoms are important in this pushback, and disclosure. When that happens, I'm almost guaranteeing you that the egos that lose are going to fight it or total withdrawal. And that's not going to be the best move for them. So let's get into our solution slide so that you can get an idea for how best to behave. First, just a review of the influence. It's Mario Brothers wielding his fire, his Aries new moon energy. And it's expansive and it's pushback. What has been weak is ascending, feels much less conflicted and less tension inside. Fire of Aries new moon and multiple semi-sextiles sparks a new fiery growth period, like the beautiful glow of the rising sun in the morning. Progress is unstoppable. All right, in our solution slide, it's important to go through these different, I know it's a lot of reading here, but it's important to go back through all the the things that we're triangulating. So the I-Ching said liaison. If you notice the spirit forces coming together, don't trust it. Watch the power continuum this week. Watch for temptations of quick power balancing or power advantages. Avoid this altogether. Also remember that the new moon is April Fool's Day, and it's going to be even harder to see how you're being tricked because your Mercury is going to be combust and so weakened and almost in that maximum state of weakness. So watch out on this. It's sort of a very impulsive fire energy of Aries without the filter of Mercury. So good luck with that. Let's just put it that way. You might not even know that you're progressing or that you have that energy available. You just do it. Rave Mandala said powerlessness, being able to ego survive a defeat by superior forces, else ego is broken. There's going to be a lot of broken egos this week because not every Aries energy will, and every Aries progress will succeed. So don't give in to temptation or total withdrawal, which breeds chronic failure. Okay, stand your ground, but accept each individual defeat if it comes. Make sure you don't withdraw. Sidereal Pisces says spiritual, compassionate, idealistic, connected to others, transcendent, on a new plane, on a higher plane of you've learned everything you need to learn, and now you're progressing up to the next higher layer, leveling up, psychic awareness. So here we go. Overall triangulation. The energy of easy rising appears to be tricking you into a false sense of power or entitlement. Stay mindfully aware of the power continuum that morphed from the follower continuum of last week. Actively look for power differentials, people desperate for control, illusions of winning and losing. Especially notice your own behaviors and how they yearn for power and control. The best this week will come from the Pisces solution, which encourages us to show altruism, pure intention, compassion, transcendence, transpersonal awareness of higher realms of existence, and demonstrate that we are all one. Especially important to avoid escapism, such as spiritual bypassing when utilizing the Pisces actions, particularly when the ego feels defeated or is actually defeated. And what I mean by spiritual bypassing, there was a book written about that. I actually have that book. And written by a psychologist. It talks about how people use their spiritualism or maybe their religion as a way to avoid having to deal with real problems. That's a real concern this week. I think all of us are going to feel the expansive, and in doing so, we'll have a periodic downside or a loss. And it doesn't mean the whole thing loses. I mean, maybe these individual conflicts lose, but overall, you're still expanding outward, still fighting for what you believe in, still easy progress outward, but invariably can't win 100%. So no escapism. Don't fall into that. Stand up strong with Aries energy and confidence, but avoid power, control, and especially avoid power control over others. Accept the natural flow of power and find neutrality and balance. The key is acceptance. And acceptance is included in all the things, accepting what you have power over, what you have control over, and what you don't have power and control over. That's probably the biggest form of acceptance. But recognizing and attuning to the legitimate and real and honest loss, that's hard to do. So can you do that without escaping? That's the question. And I don't want to make it sound like this is a whole week of you're trying really hard and you're going to fail. That's not what I'm suggesting. It's you're going to try really hard and you're going to have a certain small percentage of that in failure. So can you just accept that and move on? Are you going to waddle in it? Are you going to escape from it? Are you going to go use drugs and alcohol to cope with that? Or are you going to see how you're winning in all the other areas? So, I think I just bumped my table. And then finally, if you want to use a little mantra, and this one is a very Pisces thing to say, but I'm at my most powerful when I choose to not use it. So it's one thing to have a powerful item, such as a gun can kill. So you have a gun and you can kill, but you choose not to use it, which is more powerful than anything. It's having the power. That's the higher form of power, is having, and I'm not, there's lots of other examples. Money, having money and not using it is a powerful thing. So having that power and choosing not to use it is actually more powerful than using it. Being able to punch somebody in the face because you're stronger, bigger, or faster, or know karate more, or black belt, and choosing not to use it is more powerful. So think about, conceptualize all that kind of stuff, but watch the continuum of power and control this week, especially getting you prepared for the next week, because of that Mercury square Pluto. It's going to be a theme. So this will get you ready for that as well. And it'll also moderate this Aries energy that wants to just conquer everything. An expansive, easy progress. It seems that everything's easy. And so be aware of that. Start getting ready for the power continuum. Start seeing it in others. Start looking at how others are escaping loss, pretending that it didn't happen, or don't want to come to terms with it, or don't want to accept. So key is acceptance, but also awareness. And it's hard to do when you got your awareness mind in a state of combust, Mercury combust Sun. But just pay attention, keep paying attention, keep grounding so that you can stay grounded and hopefully have the awareness that I'm talking about. All right, everybody. Thanks for being here. We will see you on the other side next week. Take care. Love and light.